Hello, I want to welcome you to my podcast, To the Bone Honest Conversations on Pain, Illness, and Meaning. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Bone. I'm a psychologist. I'm also someone that lives with a chronic illness myself. And I want to welcome you into this space, a space for honesty, compassion, and reflection. I want to begin by saying something you may not hear enough. If you're living with pain or an illness or a fatigue that just doesn't go away, you're not alone. You may feel alone. You may be listening to this podcast by yourself, but illness can just cut us off from so much. It can just take so much from us. It shrinks our world. It can silence so many conversations. But here in this podcast, you have a place where your experience matters. Now, the name, To the Bone. Why the title? It's not just because my last name is Bone, although, yes, it is, and that's kind of part of it here. It's also because of the phrase, to the bone, and it just carries weight, meaning we're not trying to stay on the surface. It means that we're cutting through the layers, going deeper, getting raw and real. It also means essence. Bone is what remains when everything else is stripped away. Illness has a way of doing that, taking away roles, routines, identities, leaving us face to face with what's essential. Who are we? What is our value? What gives us meaning? That's where I want this podcast to live, in the honesty of suffering and in the essence of what matters. Now let's sit with the metaphor just a little bit longer. Think of the ways pain strips down things. Maybe you used to run and you can't anymore. Maybe you used to work long hours, but now your body sets limits. Maybe friendships or relationships have shifted because of illness, and it just changes everything about what you can do and how you show up and whether or not you can show up. It's stripping away life. And that's painful. It's grief. It's loss. But sometimes in the stripping, we also discover what's real. We find relationships that endure. We realize time and energy are finite. And that helps us see what's worth spending time on. Where do we place our values, our attention, our love? All of it. We learn what matters to the bone. For me, the bone has become a symbol of truth. When someone says, I'm hurting, I'm exhausted, I don't know how to keep going, that's the bone, that's the truth. That's when someone else says, even in the midst of this, I found a reason to keep moving, to keep creating, to keep loving. That's the bone, too. I think the bone as both fragile and strong. Bones can break. I have broken bones. I have 3 pins in my ankle right now. They can ache, but they can also hold us up. They're our structure. They endure. And when illness takes us down to the bone, sometimes we discover strength that we just didn't know that we had before. Now, let me share a little bit of my story, not because I want this podcast to be about me, but because I want you to know where I'm coming from. I've been a psychologist for over 20 years, and in that time, I've sat with thousands of people who have lived with chronic pain, chronic illness, depression, anxiety, trauma. I've witnessed courage in the face of suffering. I've seen how isolating it can feel when no one else understands. And alongside that professional life, I've lived with my own health challenges. I have a primary immune disorder, common variable immune deficiency, and I have to infuse immunoglobulins in once a week just to be able to have that immune system functioning for me. And even then, I still deal with regular infections. And I know what it's like to wake up tired, to cancel plans because the body just won't cooperate, to look fine on the outside while inside everything feels like a battle. That's the dual perspective, the clinician and the patient. shapes this podcast. It keeps me honest. It means I can sit here and pretend it's simple, but it's not. It never has been, and it never will be simple. And what do I mean by simple? It's just not about neuroplasticity. It's not about nociceptive pain. It's not about just an app or an exercise or just the right retreat or the right frequency that's just going to make everything better. I say chronic is chronic. It's called a chronic illness. It's called chronic pain. Chronic means that it's not going away. And there are a lot of charlatans that want to sell the idea that they can make the chronic go away. And simply put, show me the evidence. I don't see it. Now, there are a lot of great ways of being able to cope with these illnesses on this journey of living life. But at the end of the day, there isn't an answer at this moment. There's not, because if there was a ticket out of here, I would purchase it and I would tell everyone where to get it. But that ticket just doesn't exist in the here and now. So for right now, our pain management doctors are doing the best they can with their shots, their injections, their nerve blocks, the medication they prescribe. But this place and the conversations that we have here is not how do we just cure pain. It's how to live a better life with chronic illness, how to live a better life with chronic pain, how to live a better life when the body changes and the story changes and we evolve. Illness just has that way of changing the story of life. It interrupts plans, dreams, careers, reshapes relationships. It changes your sense of self. It even touches how you think about morality, the meaning of life, about God, or the absence of God in your life, your spirituality. I want to be clear. I am not here as the expert with all the answers. I am here as a fellow traveler, someone that's just spent years of listening, reflecting, and living with these questions myself. But I don't have the answers. I'm just on this journey doing the best I can alongside you. And let me reiterate a very important issue here associated with this podcast and what it isn't. This is not a list of miracle cures. You have lived with this chronic illness or pain. You've probably been bombarded with just different ideas. Did you try this diet? Did you take this supplement? Follow this protocol? Did you just think positive? You'll be fine. I know it's exhausting and it sometimes feels like shaming and guilt as if it's your responsibility that if you had just taken the right supplements, the right diet, the right this, the right that, that you would be better. But you know what? That's not the case. And that's not where we want to end up with this podcast. This podcast isn't pretending that the pain disappears if you work hard enough, because the pain doesn't always disappear. Illness doesn't always lift. And it isn't about ignoring medical advice either. Medicine matters. Science matters. Treatments matter. But illness is bigger than medicine. It's not just physical, it's psychological, emotional, existential, spiritual. It touches your identity, your relationships, the meaning of who you are as a person. So we don't sugarcoat suffering here. But also, the conversations don't stop at despair. We'll talk about acceptance, but not resignation. We'll talk about grief, but also growth. We'll talk about isolation, but also connection. We'll talk about meaning because meaning doesn't erase suffering, but it changes the way we carry it. And yeah, that's an Irving Yalom quote, but we'll get to him later. So, what does this look like? Here I am. I show up on your phone every once in a while, once a week. There's a To the Bone podcast. What does this look like? Well, some episodes will be me, like today, just reflecting on big questions. Think of it like sitting down together and no rush, no judgment, just space to breathe and reflect and listen to whatever I have to pontificate about on that particular day. Other episodes will feature guests, patients, clinicians, writers, maybe even philosophers, people who have lived with pain and illness, people who have found ways of telling their truth, telling their story, and still finding creative ways of living a meaningful life. We'll talk about why me. It's a huge one that comes up often, mainly in my own head. Why me? Why am I sick? Why are they fine? I've always liked the quote, health is a crown only the ill can see. And so it comes back. Why me? It's a there's no easy answers to that, and we're not going to try to pretend, but we can still explore it. How do we carry this pain? Just exploring the difference between cure and care, the story and suffering, about how the stories we tell about the pain shape our experience of it, isolation and connection, how the illness cuts us off, and how we can find belonging, community again. Naturally, we're tribal animals. That's how we're supposed to be living. And modern society will cut us off. I'm not even physically there as you listen to this voice. It's a digital recording of it. But illness, it really isolates us that much further and takes us away from naturally who we are as human beings. And of course, death and meaning. Yes, the hardest topics, but ones that matter tremendously. And if you notice, freedom, isolation, death, meaning, to some of you, that may sound very, very familiar. And those are the core pillars of existential psychotherapy from Dr. Yalom. And I'm a huge fan of Dr. Yalom and Dr. Rollo May, as well as the other ones. It may go back to Sartre, it can go back to Heidegger and Kierkegaard and Camus, all of them. They feed into it, and obviously, I bow down a little bit more to Dr. Rolomé and Irvin Yalom, as they can then translate it for me to make it a little bit more viable for me to digest it, so I can digest it and serve it back to you in terms of understanding existentialism and how we can create a better quality of life under these difficult circumstances. Through this, each episode will be grounded in this honesty and compassion. It's got to be straightforward. If anything, from when I show up to talk to somebody, I don't wear the mask of a therapist. I am myself. I am a human. I am Jeff. I have this honest aspect to me, and that's ultimately informed by Dr. Carl Rogers, which is the humanistic side of myself. Some of this will be heavy, but that's why we're talking about it. That's why it matters, because some people, it's just easier to ignore it. It's easier not to ask. It's easier not to say, oh, so how'd that doctor's visit go? Oh, how's that new medication going? People stop asking, they stop inquiring. And some of these very heavy topics are incredibly important to discuss. And we don't want to just gloss over things. We want people to be felt, understood, and appreciated. But make no mistake, we are trying to seek some relief. And we are trying to find that place where the understanding can lead to that better quality of life. And at the end of the day, my hope is that all of it just feels like company. It feels like you are sitting amongst friends that understand a difficult plight of life, a difficult circumstance, and that you are understood and appreciated throughout. But why do I even care about you? Why does that even matter? It's just the isolation of the pain, the boredom of being alone, stuck in a bed, stuck at home, not being able to do the things that you just are used to doing. It's just so isolating. And I've been there. I know what it's like to just feel as though that you're chained to a bed that you want to rip free from, you want to escape from, but the illness has you isolated. And it's difficult. Sometimes the friends stop calling, the invitations dry up. People just don't know what to say. So they end up just saying nothing at all. Sometimes even the family doesn't understand. And that's really when the isolation hits sometimes the heaviest. And it becomes this overwhelming thing that just feeds grief, sadness, feeling demoralized. That's where I hope that conversation can break isolation. When someone names what you've been carrying silently, it's like opening up a window. When you can hear a story that mirrors yours, you can feel less alone. When the suffering is shared, it becomes maybe not lighter, but more human, more bearable. That's what I hope with this podcast. I hope that it can be a voice just in that void, in that silence, a place that your experience matters, a place that where you can find that honesty and maybe even hope. Maybe while pain may not go away, meaning is still possible, dignity is still possible, connection is still possible. So here are my intentions for To the Bone: to tell the truth about pain and illness, to create space for both suffering and hope, to connect with people who feel isolated, and to explore meaning, not to erase pain, but to transform it. This podcast isn't about pretending everything is fine. It isn't about magical cures. It's about saying, even when it's not fine, life is still worth living. Let me say that again because it's the essence here. Even when it's not fine, life is still worth living. I'm not here to cure you. There's no doctor patient relationship here, but I'm still not here to cure you. And this podcast will not be a cure. I'm here to walk with you. I'm here to talk honestly, to listen deeply, and try to remind you that your story still matters. And I hope that you can hear that through what's being shared through this podcast. So thank you for listening to this very first episode of To the Bone. If this resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe, to share it with somebody who may need it too, and just join me for future conversations. This is To the Bone: honest conversations on pain, illness, and meaning. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Bone. Let's keep going together.